W.T. Stace is a good example of a scholar who takes a soft determinist position. He agrees with the hard determinist that every human action is determined by previous causes, whilst also agreeing with the libertarian that without free will there can be no morality. For Stace, we are free beings. For Stace, the disbelief in free will is a semantic problem, meaning a problem with the understanding of the meaning of words. Determinist philosophers have assumed an incorrect definition of free will, and then, having looked around the world and found that nothing exists that answers their definition, said that it doesn't exist. The incorrect definition of free will is the same as indeterminism, the idea that determinism is false. He asks us to consider the case of a person who thinks that the word man means five-legged animal. If the person looks around and observes that there are no five-legged animals, he concludes that no men exist. To correct the mistake about whether or not men exist at all, one has to reveal the correct definition of man. Stace thinks that the debate about free will is similar, if more subtle. It can be resolved by coming to the correct definition of free will. The definition of free will cannot be the same as uncaused, because clearly when we use the words free will, we can attribute some kind of cause to them. The right definition of a word is that definition that is in accordance with the most common usage. Therefore, the definition of man as a five-legged animal was wrong because it conflicts with the ordinary meaning of man. So if we look at the various ways in which we can use the term free will, we can determine which one is correct. Stace says that a free act is when Gandhi fasted because he wanted to free India. But a person who doesn't eat because there's no food does not act freely. Or a person who confesses to a crime when he wishes to ease his conscience acts freely, but not when the police beat him up. If a defendant in a trial testified that she signed a confession freely, it would be a mistake to claim that she did not confess freely on the sole ground that humans do not have free will. To do so would ignore the ordinary usage of free will. The ordinary usage of the word free clearly means voluntary or in accordance with a person's own desires. From these examples, Stace concludes that freely chosen actions are not uncaused and voluntary acts do not require contra-causal freedom. To deny that causation is present is to make a claim without a scrap of evidence. Freely chosen acts are those whose immediate causes are desires, motives, or psychological states from within the agent or person. Acts not freely done are those whose immediate causes are external to the agent or person. So wanting to go to lunch is an internal cause, whereas being evicted from the office is an external cause. This is the common usage of the term free. This understanding of free will is consistent with events having causes, and so is compatible with determinism. If you know someone's character, you may well be able to predict their actions with accuracy, but this does not make them any the less free. Prediction does not influence an internal cause. Just because you predicted a person would vote Republican in the election does not mean it influenced them to. Punishment is thus justified for two reasons. Firstly, correcting character. If we administer punishment, then we assume that it will correct behaviour. In this instance, we are making the assumption of cause and effect. The second reason for punishing is for the purpose of deterring others. If we administer punishment of one person in order to scare others into not committing the same crime, then again we assume cause and effect. For Stace, moral responsibility would actually disappear without determinism. Free will requires an internal cause, and without this, actions would be uncaused or unpredictable. If you can't influence a person's desires and motives through reward and punishment, then there would be no moral responsibility. Responsibility comes from these desires. So punishment as a concept requires an understanding that we are causally determined.